the conversation at the start of the season was, oh, Arsenal look a bit slower. And now we're at this part of the season where you're like, actually, this is just how Arsenal play now.
Yeah.
They've really refined it to a way that doesn't quite seem like refinement on the eye, because it's not as, eye-catching as it was last season. It's just more effective.
Well, the match taking place around the first Easter egg vomit of the day. Sunday, 4:30, Manchester City versus Arsenal. Let's get right into it, guys. Manchester City facing Arsenal for the first time since they obviously got defeated at the Emirates in October. I mean, that was a big result, wasn't it? And we sort of thought that was going to set the pace, set the tone for the rest of the Premier League, Luke.
Did we?
I did.
Good.
I think I was on the show and I said, this is going to set the pace for the rest of the...
Late goal from Martinelli, Jim?
It was, yeah.
Yeah, it's a massive win for Arsenal, who obviously still sit top of the table on goal difference as we come and record this today. And ultimately, they've got to do this again. This is exactly what they've got to do again. And it's a far tougher ask this time around because they won't be on their own patch. But it's one of those games, actually. It's a barn burner. It's barn burner potential. I don't think on the Ramble we can, in all good conscience, call a game a barn burner before it's happened, because you do get the occasional damp squib.
Could be smouldering at this point.
Could be smouldering, but I think in retrospect, I wouldn't be surprised if we were to be able to call this a barn burner.
There's petrol smells in the air.
Presumably it's the size of game that Vish wants someone who's now dead to go and do some kind of motivational speech before the game for.
Yeah.
I just realised myself the other day that
He was dead.
Sean Connery.
Is he dead?
I just realised the other day
that I'm dead.
He's dead. He's dead.
He is dead.
I want to say, though, very quickly...
I want to say...
the number
Mr.
Bond. James Bond.
I've got all of them, Vish, if you want.
Eject a seat, you're joking.
That's a weird one.
Eject the seat, you're joking.
There were a lot of people in my DMs. I would say backing me up, and he's still dead. But
Sean Connery popped in
also
there.
wrong people.
yeah. Well, exactly. Yeah, a lot of fellow flat Conneryers, or maybe standing Conneryers.
Yeah.
And then I mentioned to Olympia, my wife, that the stupid thing happened today. I thought Sean Connery was dead, or thought he was still alive. And she
Still
went,
confused about it now.
And she went, we literally last month booked tickets to see The Rock at the Prince Charles Cinema as a tribute to Sean.
I feel like I'm rubbing off on you a little bit, Vish.
Yeah, I think you are.
Disorganised
Yeah, and I like
administrator, brain-wise.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So are you clear in your own mind now that he's definitely dead?
Yeah, I'm going to watch The Rock and find, just to be sure.
There is
You know that him being in that was filmed in the past, so that doesn't mean he's
It's
alive
not a play.
now. Yeah,
But the way Vish tells the story, even that one, there's like a tone to his voice which makes him sound like he's still not
sure.
quite sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like
No,
it's
he
some
could
kind of
return.
elaborate ruse.
Yeah.
They're not going to bring him out at the end for a
Look,
standing ovation.
As with everything in the world right now, do your own research.
Exactly, yeah.
Big time.
Someone said you was. Someone said
You
was
can't
dead.
trust the MSM, mate.
Yeah.
But anyway, what were we talking about? Arsenal
Man
versus
City Arsenal.
Man City
Is
Arsenal.
this tie still alive in your mind? Is this league's title still alive?
It's very much alive. It's 1 point between the top
It's in
three
rude
teams.
health, isn't it?
I was going to say, and also there's 1 point between the top three teams, and of course we can't forget those still deluded Spurs fans as well. But Jim, I was going to say, this is a great Easter weekend treat for the neutral.
Egg melter.
Yeah.
It's an egg melter.
It's an egg
it is an egg melter. Absolutely.
But for an Arsenal fan or for a Man City fan, this is crunch time. I think that Man City fans are more relaxed about it just because they've got this sheen of confidence/arrogance of not only A, being from Manchester, but B, having done this loads of times before.
I mean, they've got the experience on this side, haven't they? But also, I think the flip side of that is that I can only really speak for myself, but I think it's probably true amongst a lot of Arsenal fans as well. There's a bit less trepidation going into this fixture than there has been before.
Okay.
Purely because of not just the win in the league earlier in the season, but the game in the Charity Shield was obviously very Community Chest was very tight as well, and Arsenal were just more competitive, and the problem in the past has been going into these games like hoping that you're going to give a good account of yourself, maybe nick something, and then just getting battered. And seeing the sort of distance between the two teams has been quite demoralising for Arsenal in the past. And then it sort of really, really rocks them. It feels like that's less likely to happen now. Even if they lose on Sunday, I think they'll be able to dust themselves off from it in a way that will be different than it has been in previous years. So that sort of aura that you're talking about is interesting, isn't it? Because if Arsenal win, that would put them 4 points ahead of City. but that City aura is such that it feels like a defeat for them wouldn't be as bad as it would be for Arsenal.
That makes sense.
Even though technically it would.
Yeah,
be.
exactly.
You can't convert that into points, though.
No,
crucially.
you can't. And actually, they've got a weird record this season. They've only of the traditional Big Six, they've only beaten Man United. Sorry, Vish. And of the actual top 5, they've not beaten anyone.
And Arsenal's record against the top 6 is the best of the 3 currently gunning for the title as well. Yeah,
There are some, and that's a really good point because there are some kind of like measures here where you start to think to yourself, Arsenal are maturing in that way.
Yeah.
Like whether we like it or not, the recent years of Arsenal's story has been great to watch, exciting team, Arteta doing a brilliant job, but ultimately just falling a bit short. And last season, that's what it was all about. Last season, looking back on it, I don't want to sound harsh, but last season it felt a bit like, okay, easy to be wise after the event, but they were probably always going to fall a bit short. Seeing what they've learned from that this season will be interesting, and this game is like a vital component of that. And then if you take into account that Man City may not have Ederson, may not have De Bruyne, may not have Stones. In fact, they probably won't have Stones.
Kyle Walker as well.
May not have Kyle Walker. So there's some big key players missing. And a Man City story has been like, really, if you think about it, it doesn't really matter if we're missing players because the system's so big and the system's so strong.
But this is a lot of players, though, isn't it?
It's a lot of players and it's a big game. And you also are in a stage of the season now where it's not just winning. When you're playing against another team like as a rival, you're ensuring they don't win. Because otherwise you're just watching the telly to see what they do in their result, and you go, "Oh God, they've won as well," and that's that.
And you've got that added pressure of Liverpool playing first. So if Liverpool win and then this game's a draw, that's great news for them.
It's a good title race. It is. It's a really good title race.
It really
it's
is
fun, and I'm glad it's still alive at this point in the season. A lot being made in this match with the Rodri versus Rice battle in the centre of the park, which is just possibly salivating at the idea. But it's just interesting because Man City, they were linked with Rice for a very, very long time. They clearly rate him. So, I mean, Pep's probably going to spend a bit of time thinking about what Rice is going to be up to, Vish.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it's funny because, I think setting them against each other to frame this game is right, really, given how integral Rodri is to, has been to Man City, and also it's underpinned by his knack of scoring really important goals at this stage of the season as well, or even just getting them out of trouble at the end of games. And Rice has been basically a reaction to what Luke was saying about Arsenal's campaign last time around, when it felt like, right, you're missing a couple of things here. You're basically missing a bit of presence to go and get Declan Rice. We can probably even throw Kai Havertz into that mix as well.
It's also the physical profile as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and just the way that Rice has taken to the task has been exceptional. But really, when you think about it, they probably won't come across each other all that much. And when they do, you're kind of waiting for the mother of all shoulder barges, really, because there's two such imposing figures. And I suppose maybe that's why Havertz and Rodri would be not a better comparison, but a better matchup in terms of Havertz has shown himself to be quite important to Arsenal in big games as well. I think it's, obviously this season Arsenal have done well against Man City if we throw in the community chest as well. But you also look at that Liverpool game, and bear in mind, like, Liverpool weren't very good, of course, when Arsenal won 3-1 at home. But Arsenal restricted them to one shot on target, as they did to Man City in the game that they won at home as well.
Their record's the best. I think their record the best in the Premier League at reducing other teams' chances.
Yeah.
All the numbers underneath that underpin what they're doing, they're actually really solid.
Yeah, and I feel like, whereas last season you'd come into these games, certainly as a neutral, and look at it and think, well, Arsenal could potentially run roughshod over this team, but if they get stuck, then they will find it hard to get out of that funk. Whereas now, the conversation at the start of the season was, Arsenal look a bit slower. Maybe they're playing a bit more considered. And now we're at this part of the season where you're like, actually, this is just how Arsenal play now.
Yeah.
They've really refined it to a way that doesn't quite seem like refinement on the eye, because it's not as, eye-catching as it was last season, but it's just more effective.
It's the chance to have their treble, isn't it, really, Arsenal, this season? Because they've beaten them twice already.
No,
So it's their treble.
Didn't they draw against
Penalty,
them?
wasn't it?
Oh, it's fine, penalties. Yeah, okay. That would count, I guess.
The
but,
treble.
Yeah.
Arsenal's treble
You get a
is
T-shirt
on.
made up if they don't win the title. I'll tell you a player I'd like to mention is, based on what you just said, is the Jorginho factor. I think he's been really good.
Oh, he's been fantastic. He'll probably get a new contract. There's an option to extend for a year, but there's talk of him being off for 2 years because that's likely what he would get elsewhere. But
what it looked like to me, Jim, when I went to go and see them play against Newcastle at home, was that, and I would say this is probably the case again when they beat Liverpool at home as well. He's just metronomic. He Rodri's the best in that position in the field in the world, and he's a different type of player to Jorginho. But what Jorginho brings for Arsenal, and he definitely brought it against Liverpool, and he 100% brought it against Newcastle. Because of Jorginho, I know Newcastle haven't been as good this season, but we're only going back a month or so. Because of Jorginho, Arsenal basically choked Newcastle to death for 90 minutes. They couldn't get in the game. They couldn't get anywhere near him.
The metronome thing's interesting. He's also a grown-up in that midfield.
Right.
He's organising. He's telling people where to be. He's a sort of example to follow, and he's setting that example so regularly because he's on the ball so much and passing so much, and he moves around the pitch like Captain Tom at times, but it's still so
get him a
effective.
spa.
Yeah.
Don't worry about the planning permission. Don't forget the planning permission. Am I doing, boss? I think this game is really important, symbolically. I think if Arsenal can win this game, they can probably show to themselves that beyond all doubt they've got what it takes to do the business. Because you've already mentioned it, Pete. They would have tied up a treble of wins over them if you want to count a penalty shootout in a charity game. And that will show them there's nothing to be frightened of, and they'll also limit to Man City to win. And of course, the other thing is that they've got another rival for the title, haven't they, in Liverpool, and it's not going to be easy. If Arsenal win the title this season, I mean, incredible achievement given who they're up against. I mean, given where they've come from, they haven't won the league for 20 years. I mean, it's be amazing, really.
Well, maybe Ricey will be a little tired after his special celebration on Tuesday night after his 50th England cap.
Hanging out with James Corden's going to take it out of you emotionally. Nothing else.
Apparently, James Corden organised the whole thing. Which I'm not into that.
Otherwise, no one would fucking invite the guy, would they?
You got to put your money where your mouth is, I suppose, if you're Corden.
The only way that James Corden is going to be hanging around with other people who are cool, who actually want to be there with him, are American people who don't understand that shit.
Like Sean Spicer. Yeah. Remember that picture of him with Sean Spicer?
Oh, yeah.
The Trump spokesman back in the day. That was a wild period, that.
Yeah.
And if he organises the whole thing and says he'll pay for it.
Yeah, at the Chiltern Firehouse. I've been there once, and they put in the urinals, they put ice.
Yeah, I've seen that in places before.
What?
I think it's to stop the splashback, isn't it?
I thought it was just to stop the smells, but not use kind of like dangerous chemicals. But you're making all of that kind of ice. That's going to cost
I have
you
seen
money,
that
innit?
before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's that
I
about?
don't think ice is expensive, is it?
Well, it is to make, isn't it? You've got to freeze something.
What?
Make me some ice, big man.
The way Thames Water are going, it will be.
Yeah.
Absolutely will be.
Yeah.
That's a good bit of insight, though, Peter. Anything else from your time at Chiltern Firehouse? Were you with James Corden?
Played table tennis with David Gandhi. There we go.
No, that is
Oh,
great stuff.
that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
I'll take that.
Did you beat him?
No, he's a big man with a big wingspan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A big triangle.
Were you kind of reluctant to have a fighter taken next to him because he's obviously a famously very handsome man?
I think David Gandhi looks a little bit like who's the man who got run over by that footballer recently from EastEnders? Do you remember?
Dean Gaffney.
Dean Gaffney. I think he looks a bit like Dean Gaffney.
See, if you squint,
And Dean will be happy with that.
do you reckon
Yeah, he will.
I'd be delighted. Do you think there's a scale then? And if you squint, they're on the same scale?
I think so, yeah.
Because they say there's only 7 types of face, don't they?
Yeah, and, Emily from used to work in the radio. She said that David Gandhi is what people think that women like, but it's
Right.
not.
Right.
If you know what I
Right.
mean.
And she's sitting next to you saying
She
that,
said next to
presumably.
me. Exactly.
It was.
yeah.
I feel-
It was Wesley Fofana.
Wesley
And
Fofana in his
EastEnders star
kakana.
catapulted into air after the big run over by Chelsea star.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
That is the most spectacular thing a Chelsea player's done this season.
Pete, also, I feel like your mate told you that in a way that, when you're feeling down, people say nice things to you. Like, it's like, oh, no,
yeah.
don't
Don't
worry about
worry,
it.
it
It
doesn't
doesn't,
look
no.
like-
But do you remember?
Women really like a sense of humour.
Listen, I don't know if you know this, but there once the most devastating insult Pete's ever delivered to me. So we went and recorded at some studio, and it was overseen by a really handsome Swedish guy, fishing jumper, beard. He looked amazing, and we were sat there ready to go. And Pete just leant over to me and went, "See that guy there?" And I said, "Yeah." And he went, "That's what you think you look like." Right.
quite cruel, really.
It's
isn't it?
amazing. It's
very
absolutely
cruel, yeah.
spot on, right? Is that what you are with David Gandhi? Is that your thing, or is it more? Is that what you are like when you look at Dean Gaffney?
I don't think I look very much like either of them, to be honest. I look like, as discussed, an exiled Nazi. That's what I look like. That's my look, unfortunately.
If you started taking Wellman, though, maybe.
Yeah.
He's always on the.
But I think on paper,
Wellman, isn't he?
on paper, people look at you. You've got the jawline. You've still got the hair.
Right.
You've got the kind of cool look.
Still hanging in there.
And people on paper, if I described you to someone,
Turkey fake Saudi Newcastle shirt.
yeah, I wrote down everything that you were. People would look at that, potential partners,
Yeah.
potential suitors, and go, yeah, okay. And then
5'8", no thanks.
And then you come down the stairs at some kind of debutant's ball and like Edwardian England, and they go, nah.
I didn't lie to you. I didn't lie to. None of that is a lie.
On paper, he's handsome.
Yeah. Well, before we move on to a tasty one between Liverpool and Brighton, just got to touch on the fact that we spoke about Fernando Torres playing in the Liverpool Legends match, and he's massive and he's hench and he's completely immobile now. But it turns out that Mesut Ozil is also hench now. Is this welcome, Jim?
No, it's frightening, isn't it? His
looks
arms
odd.
are absolutely massive, and I can't really sort of reckon it.
Because he's got quite
the same
bulging
Mesut
eyes.
Ozil.
It looks like it hurts. You know what I mean? Do you not think?
Is it not part of you that just thinks, why did you not take your fitness that seriously when you were playing?
Isn't it a mobility thing, though? If you're a really
is.
hench
Yeah,
player, then you
100%,
actually lose a
yeah.
lot of what makes you good,
You lose a
especially
lot-
in that role.
You lose a lot of agility, and also like Ozil was really fit. I always find it really interesting because like because of his style, because he's quite lazy in terms of like how he looked, like the aesthetic,
Languid, yeah.
language, yeah. I remember there was a period where when he was playing with Alexis Sanchez, who is just like a human muscle ball. Obviously, always sprinting down the left. Everyone's like, he gets through so much work, and Ozil would always top the running numbers every game.
It was weird.
A tasty one Sunday from 2 has to be said. Liverpool versus Brighton. Brighton are a bit of a bogey team for Liverpool. I could see them kind of getting something out of this. They beat them twice, drawn twice in their last 4 meetings. Liverpool have to maintain this head of steam, though, as we approach the final furlongs, isn't it, Luke?
Yeah,
I do still think that Brighton are going to get something out of this.
It's been quite weird how since the turn of the year Brighton have been so inconsistent though.
Yeah.
Like it was almost a bit like the way that football dialogue goes around certain teams, like the narratives around certain teams. People just go, oh, they're actually a good team, so we don't really talk about them much. They'll probably finish about 6th, and everyone's thinking, oh, aren't they brilliant? Since the turn of the year, they've not actually been that good.
Yeah, they've only won 2 games in a. Sorry, they haven't won 2 games in a row since September,
Right.
which tells you a lot.
Well, the last 2 they have, if you count the Europa League game, they got
Sorry,
knocked out.
this is in the Premier League.
Yeah, fine, okay, fine, that makes perfect sense. Yeah.
It makes it quite exciting for the season ticket holder, though, you'd imagine.
Oh,
He's like, I never know what I'm going to get.
I was
It's
speaking
like a buffet.
I was speaking to Jules the other day, and she was having a little moan up about the fact that she covered the Brighton Roma ties, and she was obviously loving it. But she was like, "Oh yeah, I was really annoyed because we just stayed in the tie from the first leg, and it would have been a different story." And I was like, "Yeah, but Jules, like, I mean." Brighton playing Roma in Europe.
Resources,
Like, I know you can't afford, the players can't afford to be like that, of course, but a bit of perspective is like, actually, they're doing, historically, they're doing absolutely
It's like
amazing.
Newcastle Europe run that I've experienced. You just sort of go, God, if we just played like we usually do. Yeah, but it's a different environment.
Totally.
But Brighton have been in serious danger several times of going completely out of business and have been like the bottom division and stuff. Newcastle haven't quite gone to those depths yet.
Yeah. I'm sure.
But I mean, having said all that, you're absolutely right. I mean, when was the last time Brighton lost to Liverpool? It's a while ago now.
Yeah.
The game at the Amex earlier in the season was a really good game. Brighton came back quite late on with the old man of himself, the old man of the England squad, Lewis Dunk, popping up with an equaliser late on. So you don't know what's going to happen here. It's another good game. It should be really interesting. And I guess Arsenal, Man City fans will be watching this one keenly because they'll want Brighton to do them a favour. Liverpool got ahead of steam though now, despite the fact they've got a lot of players missing.
Brighton feel a bit flaky to get something here.
Yeah.
For me, for this one.
Although, like, with the news that Xabi Alonso is no longer on Liverpool's long or short list to replace Klopp, Roberto De Zerbi is one of the managers who's been spoken about for that role. Initially, as a bit of an outside shot when it seemed like Alonso was, going to be paraded through.
So do you think he'll tap the Anfield sign as he comes out?
Oh, that'd be a great
I mean, like,
content.
you feel like that, not that like they've lost a head of steam, but because they're being pulled in different directions with Europe, there's I suppose a bit of distraction, and this after an international break feels like a real like honing a focus towards Anfield for everyone involved, really. So I don't know, maybe something comes out of it.
Would you put a link between the fact that De Zerbi's now got to the point where he's being linked with everyone all the time and Brighton's kind of weird form?
I don't know actually, because he kind of generally those kind of stories might come out through like an agent being a bit nefarious, but it feels like he's being linked to jobs
paper
which are
stuff.
broadly open. So obviously there's question marks over Ten Hag, and I've seen a couple of times he's been mentioned there, but only because the conversations initially being had about Ten Hag, clubs obviously already said he was going to leave. I think it's more that when you get to like when he's like the standout name in an article or something like that you can think, right, it's okay, he's doing his bidding behind the scenes here because he feels like he's
But ultimately, he is
coming
going
to the end of the road.
He is going to move on at
job.
some point, isn't he?
Which, yeah, and I think everyone was. I mean, that's basically Brighton's model, where whether it's a player or a manager, like do really well with certain people, and then get them to use it as a platform to go elsewhere.
But you obviously don't. So that's the sort of conversation you have with the manager coming in rather than going out, because you don't make any money really for a manager leaving. Do you?
No,
That's the
sure,
thing,
sure.
Oh, these
A little
days,
bit. Well, you get a
No,
bit
but
of a
you-
buyout,
but you
but
get-
it's not astronomical.
Wasn't
like a
Potter
footballer,
at
is it?
Chelsea a massive amount of money though? There was,
Right.
it's happening. You're absolutely right traditionally,
was
but it's
Brill
happening.
cream.
It's happening more and more now.
But I think it's more like you get the investment from that manager, don't you? Like, right, throw yourself into this and see what we've already shown you what can happen to people who do well here.
In the
so.
words of PJ and Duncan, Brighton is not a stepping stone. But it's an interesting situation with Xabi Alonso, obviously staying at Leverkusen this summer. Is the Liverpool job just too early for a lot of managers who may be in the frame or be interested in it anyway?
So one of the interesting things I've seen overnight about like from Liverpool fans about the Xabi Alonso stuff. So obviously the sentiment seems to be that he wants to stay at Leverkusen, and someone posited quite smartly. I can't remember who. Sorry, that you'd probably want to be the person after the one who replaces Klopp.
Yeah.
100%.
Much in the same way. That,
You don't want to be David Moyes or Unai Emery.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're spot on with both two examples from United post Ferguson and Arsenal post Wenger. So yeah, I don't know. I suppose you've really got to want it because it's a bigger job than just being the manager of Liverpool, isn't it?
And I think with him as well, him specifically, it comes a whole load of expectation around. Like he is a legendary player there.
Sexy.
He's very, very sexy as
Yeah.
well. His record at Leverkusen is just extraordinary. Like it's a complete outlier, like completely unexpected. If you had said like, oh, they will drive Bayern Munich really hard and they'll perhaps miss out on winning the title, the fact is he would still be being linked with Liverpool because that would be an extraordinary achievement. Doing what they're doing, the records they're doing, the numbers they're posting is unbelievable. And I actually don't know if it is cut and dried that he is going to stay because it just reminds me of a bit of when Andre Villas-Boas was being linked with a move to the Premier League, and he kept saying he wanted to stay. And in fact, all the journalists were briefing he was going to stay. I think Brassel at the time had spoken to him like directly, and he said he was going to stay to Brassel, and then he changed his mind because the money on offer and the chance was massive. And what got the better of him at the time, from what I remember, is like he was like, well, I don't know if his chance is going to come along again, and that can be the overriding factor. So I wouldn't write it off anyway right now. But also, what you're saying, Vish, is absolutely spot on. The pressure will be massive. And I think the difference between an Alonso character and a Villas-Boas character is that Alonso's got an amazing playing career behind him where he's gone to the very top of the game. He clearly has a really solid plan about what he wants to do. And I think the Villas-Boas stuff was even more unexpected given the fact that no one even really knew who he was. Like, Alonso's a big character in the game, and I don't think he's ever going to be short of offers. So it's perhaps a little bit different.
I think this sort of conversation at this point of the season with Leverkusen so active in so many competitions still is really unhelpful, though, isn't it? So
So he has to
the
kind of
point
do
is
something
just
to
stop wash
yeah.
this.
Right, yeah.
Just
Yeah.
whatever
Season,
actually
yeah.
happens.
Either
Yeah.
way, why must people lie to Andy?
Yeah,
Why did
I know.
Villas-Boas-
And he's a nice guy, Andy. Is
Exactly.
disappointing.
He lies to us all the time. What are you
He
talking
does,
about?
yeah,
His
he
predictions and stuff.
Makes up rumours.
Yeah. Right, coming up in the second half, Hansi Mascots and broken British infrastructure.
If you look at the game overall, probably took us 15, 20 minutes at least to get into the game or to get to grips with Millwall and their shape and what they've done. But then probably in the game was probably, the goal was probably against the run of play. It was our best spell. We just hit the foot of the post and then we have the disappointment of the goal, and that's part of it. Do you know, we're still brand new.
There's Paul Cook doing 3 different voices in the same interview.
Yeah.
The
I mean,
first
it's
two,
so
if you imagine
breathy.
like him using his hands to talk to one another.
Yeah.
It's so good.
Do you remember when that man was interviewed about crocodile attacks or something. Well, he was talking about it was an Australian
Oh, there's
politician.
a
I
dog
think.
attack.
Yeah.
Was it a dog?
No, it's Bob Catter, and it was Australian.
Bob Catter. He was basically being asked about, I think, gay marriage. I think, and he said,
Yeah.
"Let a thousand blossoms bloom,
Yeah.
but I ain't gonna be waiting one more second where these people die from alligator attacks." He started in such a lovely way.
Incredible change. It's
So
like his
good.
whole personality changes, isn't it? Like you
Yeah.
say. Paul Cook sounds like he's turning into smoke there. It's
Yeah.
phenomenal.
You don't get alligators in Australia though, so you've embarrassed yourself.
No, I really cannot track those guys. Alligators.
No,
What's the why do the alligators live over in Florida
Yeah.
and the crocodiles live in?
But I think it's a bit. I don't think anyone knows the difference.
No, I
They
think they're
just
just
say they
pissing them
do.
out. It's like the African Indian elephants, isn't it? It's like,
Yeah. No, because African elephants have got obviously far bigger ears.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
apparently they're shaped like Africa, aren't they? Isn't that?
The ear is shaped like Africa, which is
Yeah.
apparently very helpful. But you know, people say the difference between an alligator and a crocodile, you can tell the difference because one of them you'll see later and the other one you'll see in a while.
Jesus.
Oh,
Christmas.
nice! I like that.
It's good.
That's a lovely little.
Oh,
Have you never heard that before?
Never heard that before.
Peter lives in different circles to us.
I
Peter,
do.
don't
Yeah.
worry.
I
Yeah.
I really enjoyed Jesus Christmas as an
Yeah.
Jesus
Of all the
exclamation mark.
yeah, I mean, of all the days to
Wasn't that
blaspheme, today's probably not it, is it?
Wasn't that a bad guy in one of the Bond movies?
Maybe, yeah.
It's not clicking a mouse. It's James Bond on AOL Online.
In the 60s.
You've got mail.
I think that's
No.
I think that's from the PC version of GoldenEye.
Clicking away. We've got an email from Joseph Colomy. Jim, do you want to take this one, mate? 'Cause I've been
Sure.
yapping on for ages.
Why not? Joseph
Yeah.
says, regarding the chat on Monday's show about Clarence the Dragon of Northampton, the question was posed whether there were plush mascots with human hands. I don't know if there are in the old association football, but I'd like to bring you into the world of American college gridiron football. There are some great and sometimes terrifying examples. My personal favourite is Big Red, the mascot for Western Kentucky University, who is a big red anthropomorphic blob which has gloved but decidedly human hands and also Nike-shod feet. It also famously eats things such as balls of various sports, cheerleaders, pom-poms, puppies, and even fans as a gag. A photo of it eating my head at a WKU football game in 2021 is attached. Another mascot watches on, unfazed by the horrors it is witnessing. Perhaps a gaping maw is the next evolution for football mascot sideline shithousery.
It is a truly baffling and broadly terrifying mascot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I was reading up about it, and Western Kentucky University's like branding guide for Big Red. They've got a branding guide for
Nice.
it for them because apparently Big Red must always be amorphous, ambiguous, asexual, and always lovable representative of the school's athletics. He's neither Big Red is neither male or female.
Right.
Interesting.
Perhaps a mascot
There's
for
a
our
couple-
times.
There's a couple from Japan. I think you've sort of featured them on little bits and bobs you've done, Jim. But there's a pink penguin, which is the mascot for a pharmaceutical company, Ichijuku Pharmaceuticals. It's not only a penguin, but also an enema.
Right.
Oh my days!
And there's quite a good one I think I've seen at the football that is sponsored by a Sanpuku real estate company, and it's called Midori-kun. Kun meaning little boy. It has the body of a wrestler, but the face of a floor plan. It's so wonderfully shit
That's
looking.
amazing.
Do you remember, Pete, do you remember the one we found where it was like a mascot for a new golf course that was opening in Japan, and it was like a kind of weird animal, but its head was long and flat, and on
Right.
top of its head had like a mini playable golf course.
Wow.
Oh,
hole
I like
on top
it.
of its head. Yeah.
What would the Football Ramble mascot look like? That's the question, isn't it?
Get
Yeah,
cracking
get
Photoshop.
creative.
that.
We'd
absolutely.
each sort of bring something to the party. Marcus, it would be Pitbull. It'd be based on the body of Pitbull. And then, Luke, what would you add
No,
to
Marcus's
the mascot?
voice.
Right.
He'd have to speak in Marcus's voice, I think. Little voice box in there
okay.
for the character. And then you obviously have to take in different parts of different people.
You like
so-
American stuff, so it'd be a big corn dog.
You'd have to average it out, wouldn't it? So
Where is the corn dog?
Corn dog, vicious red wine.
yeah, red stained teeth. Yeah,
We've got some glasses wear, hasn't we? So
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
be
specs,
a
yeah.
lot of that. Maybe two
Yeah.
pairs of glasses, probably.
Might
Good
be.
hairline. We've all got good hairlines.
Yeah, good hair. Maybe it's a combination of all of the hair. That'd be quite something.
Basically, Marcus's haircut then.
Well,
so the mascot's also going to be 5'7".
yeah.
Yeah.
that's the average.
Yeah.
We're dragging you down, you guys.
Disappointment for me and Jim, and for Andy.
Yeah.
Andy's even taller than me. I think.
Maybe one like normal size leg, and maybe one of your
Little
size
guys,
legs.
little lads. Just don't give it a femur. Right. Brentford versus Man United. What a horrible image.
If Man United players got femurs, what would that explain what's been going on?
They haven't got feelings, I'll
No.
tell you what. The way that some members of the press talk about them. Brentford versus Man United, Saturday at 8 p.m. The last train from London to Manchester on Saturday leaves 2 minutes after kick-off.
But that's not technically true.
Oh,
There
piss
is
off,
there is a
Jim.
train that leaves from Euston at about 9:10. There's 2 changes and it takes 12 hours.
yeah.
But it
Ten
does
past
leave
nine
at
as
10
well.
past 9.
You
Yeah,
start
it still
the-
can't get it.
start
Yeah.
It's one of those, when you're on trainline.com, you're like, oh, there is one. No, there isn't. It's
No.
just what gets you there
No.
12 hours later.
To everyone listening to this show that's younger than me, I'm 43, right? I
The
promise you
trains
now.
used to work.
I promise you now.
promise you.
This country has never been worse.
It's to be a
And
proper
I'm
country.
including the Second World War in that.
And we've helped.
Yeah.
We've helped it get worse.
It's absolutely astonishing how many times you come into contact with shit that doesn't work just by leaving the house. Whether it's water or potholes or public transport or money.
Or men shouting at you in the street.
Anything.
Oi, mower.
No, I'm doing
Twat.
I'm doing the
Oh, you're
shouting.
doing the shouting. This used to be better.
Yeah.
Yes, sure.
So are you saying the Man United players won't be able to get home?
Yeah, well, I doubt they'll go by train, but I just worry that it's kind of, it's not great for fans, and it never has been great for fans, this situation.
All you can do is laugh though, because the fans have the piss taken out of them all the
yeah,
time, and we
yeah.
fell up a saying it. Like it's Saturday and Easter, and they're not going to put a train on for people. The thing about it is that I understand that train companies will say, actually, look at the statistics. Hardly anyone travels compared to commuting days on Easter weekend. We've got to do it sometime. Blah blah blah. It's just there's no thought gone into it. It's like the idea where I don't want to get too nerdy about it. But where I live at the moment, they're talking about doing like low traffic neighbourhoods and stuff like that.
Right.
And they go, that's a good idea. We'll do low traffic neighbourhoods. But what happens is they just take one part of it. They don't go, oh, this is how it's going to affect everything else.
Yeah.
A low traffic neighbourhood will work if the public transport is at a certain standard. But it fucking isn't.
What we need to do is all move to a desert wonderland where we can just plan our cities and fund Newcastle United. I think that's the way
shirt
to do it.
is talking through you.
But
I told you it's a copy. My neighbour bought it for me from Turkey.
here's the thing, right? If you're a season ticket holder at Man United and you go to away games, right, you have to pay to go to the away game. Of course, you have to pay extra because you don't get the ticket because you're a home season ticket holder. However many people are going to go to Brentford, I don't know how many it will be. Let's just say it's 2,000.
Less than they're planning, I imagine.
let's say it's 2,000, right? Just for the sake of argument, right? That's what 15 coaches.
Mm.
Man United can't afford to put 15 coaches on for their fans. You're being serious?
Burn them.
Put
Get
'em on.
involved, mate.
Do yourself a favour. It'll give you a better chance of getting a result as well. There's no thoughtfulness. There's no kind of planning or chatting between any of these big infrastructure organisations to actually make this happen. Because ultimately the calculation is made and goes, well, do you know what? Ultimately, fans are fucking mugs and they'll go anyway. So what's the point? They just don't do anything about it. It's really frustrating because the fans are always the bottom of the pile every single time. It's shit.
Well, the match-going fans as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because if certain forces had their way, they would just convert the stadiums into like massive lounges
Yeah.
where you could watch football and have some fun.
They also talk about blackouts and all that kind of stuff. Oh, you got to protect this, you got to protect that. Well, you don't do anything else to protect them.
No.
Yeah, and everyone's watching on the street. The biggest argument against the 3 p.m. blackout is that it protects lower league fans and non-league fans, clubs, and it works fine. Well, you don't know that because you're not dealing with the whole picture because you don't know how many people are streaming the games anyway. I suspect it's a lot. You probably suspect it's more than I suspect.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Because people will just get a stream anyway, won't they?
There's a generation of people who wouldn't even flirt with it about 2 years ago, very much into that kind of space, I would say.
You get it on X now. It's just one of the many improvements. That's one of the few things that has
Oh,
got
just
better,
people are just
actually.
streaming. Remember that guy? I talk about him a lot because I think about how wonderful he is. This young lad who was playing. He basically streamed an entire UFC main event, but he just sort of streamed him in shot with an Xbox controller, pretending it was a video game, and he never got caught. He managed to stream the whole UFC. Speaking of rule breakers, Ivan Toney is fresh off the back of his first England goal. Has this week been a big kind of reputation enhancer for this man, Lukey?
We talked about this on yesterday's show. So those of you who've listened to yesterday's show, I apologise if I'm going to briefly just repeat what I said then. Like what Tony's performance for England taught me, reminded me, I guess, is that the way he was able to go and win a penalty and take the penalty against Belgium it was just such a Harry Kane impression. And I think if you are going to make an argument for Ivan Toney against Oliver Watkins, why do I keep calling him Oliver Watkins? Ollie Watkins. For England, it's just that Tony's a far more similar player to Kane than Watkins is. Watkins had a better season. Watkins is arguably a better player, but Tony's more similar to Kane, which might work in his favour. And I think he needs to be looking at this now, given the season that he's had, as a massive audition here. I wouldn't be surprised if Southgate's at this game. It's in London. Tony's there. They're playing Man United. I wouldn't be surprised if he's there. Does that make a difference these days? Maybe. But if he goes and scores a hat-trick against Man United, that's massive. And given that not that long ago, there was a game at this stadium where Brentford, 4-0 up at half-time against Man United, went on to win the game 4-0. I don't think anything happened.
It was this fixture last season.
Fine.
Yeah.
It's every chance, isn't there?
Yeah.
Because you never know what... Man United are impossible to cover on this show because you never know what you're going to get.
The interesting thing about this fixture as well is obviously Brentford are not in a great spot at the moment. They've had a difficult run of games.
Far worse season than last season, definitely.
Very, very poor compared to last season. They've lost a lot recently, but they've had City, Liverpool and Arsenal in there. The thing is, the last game they had, they lost to Burnley. Now, I know they were a man down from fairly early on in the game, but it's like losing to Burnley in this season is a disaster. So are Brentford maybe a little bit of a wounded animal? Quite possibly sort of a bad time to face them in some regard as well.
I don't know. Well, the Tony factor is quite interesting. And there's also, Brian Mbeumo coming back I think he's probably about to make his first start of the new year. Like, obviously, we've seen how integral he is to everything they do going forward. Even the bit at the start of that Tony ban when him and Wissa were dovetailing really well and basically did their best to carry him through that period. I'd also say, I'd echo what Luke said about United being so hit and miss, because been various situations or moments during the season where they've taken a step forward and been knocked back.
Yeah.
So they beat Chelsea, then they lost 3-0 at home to Bournemouth. They beat Villa, big win that. Then they go to Nottingham Forest and lose. And then they obviously had a decent period in February where they win 5 in a row. They lose to Fulham. There's every chance that, after the high of that Liverpool game, they just found wanting a bit. The team dynamic is quite interesting though, because Mason Mount's back fit, and he's obviously had a really tough start to his United career. But
at least we know who's going to be the third man in England's midfield, though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
it just come on for 1 minute for United, and Southgate will call him up.
Southgate just leaves. Go get my bus. Go get my bus.
But even
Israel replacement. Israel replacement.
But Harry Maguire came out of the international break with a bit of an issue, so you're not sure about him. Like Casemiro's got a bit of a question mark around him. Diallo's obviously suspended from being sent off against Liverpool, and so it's just quite an interesting time, and it'd be interesting to see as well how much of that good feeling carries over, because the conversation completely flipped on Ten Hag. Certainly, what I've heard and read over the last week or so in terms of if he does get the FA Cup, if he does, get Champions League football, absolutely no reason to get rid of him. In part because a couple of the names that have been thrown out to replace him, such as Southgate, and Gary O'Neill.
They're not going to get Champions League, though, are they?
No, but no, it's very unlikely. But that's the conversation.
Don't we all qualify?
It's gone from being really unlikely to now people thinking, well, actually, if he does manage to get it, then that's a good reason to keep him on. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if this is a game that Brentford turn up, really, because they haven't been turning up for the last couple of months, and do a number on a United side who, as mentioned, have shown themselves to be fallible after positive moments.
Well, Rashford obviously didn't have a great international break. Before the break, Wayne Rooney was asked if he has any sympathy for the man, and said, not much, to be honest. He's in a privileged position where he's playing for Man United. Now, Wayne Rooney is out of work at the moment, isn't he? So, does this... If you're a chairman looking to enhance your team, are you going to bring him on when he's talking like a 70s good footballing man?
I love Wayne Rooney.
Yeah, he's
I know,
also thinking about being a boxer, though, isn't he? So maybe this is for boxing promoters.
Right. Okay, fair.
The whole conversation they were having about Rashford was actually quite well intentioned, and he kind of put himself in Rashford's shoes in terms of. He says he feels that sometimes Rashford tries to do too much, and he recognises that as something that he used to do when he played at United.
Yeah.
And there's also, he was saying that it's probably best for Rashford if he leaves. And that's something that, I subscribe to as well, because I'd be devastated if Rashford leaves. But at the same time, his development has been stunted at United because of Manchester United.
Yeah.
And obviously, we don't necessarily know we don't know the scale of whatever off-field issues or distractions there are for Rashford. But I suppose the privilege comes from, look, you are, regardless of whether you're playing well or badly, you're one of Manchester United's most important players. And with that comes a level of grace to a point where, look, you have to play because we know what you can do at your very best. And I suppose the privilege he's talking about is not necessarily like he gets paid X and, he's living people's dreams. I think it's more that...
Because Rooney wouldn't care about that anyway.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Right. I totally agree. That's a much more articulate way of saying
it's just kind of just decision making at the end of the day.
Yeah, ultimately, yeah. Right. But it's like I suppose you mentioned the international break there, and I suppose we could extend this to all players. Really, there's a lot up for grabs, even beyond where teams finish in these final 9-10 games, depending on how many matches teams have left, because. Like for individuals, even someone like Ben White, I find it fascinating. Like the idea that you're going into this Euros with almost a little bit of a line change. Rashford had been a shoo-in to an England squad for a major tournament because he's Marcus Rashford, and now you're like, well, mate, Jared Bowen's there pulling up trees now.
Yeah.
You've got all kinds of players.
They'll play
coming
Phil
out.
Foden on the left. Or
Or Foden. There's so many other options now. It's really interesting.
Well, just before we go to our final match, Forest Crystal Palace, Man United, obviously, you mentioned maybe talking to Gary O'Neill over a potential new role in the coaching setup. Whether that means he's going to take the manager's position or not,
I hate this.
It seems very bizarre.
You know what? I'd be interested in your thoughts on this, Fish, because the story is that they're talking about bringing Gary O'Neill into the coaching staff, and the implication is very much that he wouldn't be the manager; he'd just be part of the setup.
He's currently a Premier League manager.
I know, it's
and doing
mad.
well,
doing really, really well. Yeah. There's also the links to Gareth Southgate, which seems like a really strange choice, and it makes it seem like Ineos aren't that serious, and they don't really know what they're doing, despite all the positive noises they've made. How do you? When you look at them going forward, does it feel like it's potentially a sort of a bright new dawn, or is it more of the same nonsense?
Structurally, a bright new dawn, yeah. Footballing wise, I've mentioned it before, they are essentially bringing management consultancy to football. And I suppose we've got to be, or certainly I have to be a bit careful about this, because it's easy for, when talking about football, to dismiss the way, for example, companies go about their business and things like that, and almost kind of rest on but football's different, football's carnal, football's ours, this kind of thing. But they're basically coming in and on the football side thinking, let's streamline it to a point. Let's try and do things differently. Let's try and get thinkers in from different areas. And yeah, it is massively disrespectful.
Stick it on the blockchain.
Massively disrespectful to Gary O'Neill, to Wolves as well. I think but even in the way that they were going after Southgate, you feel like they're bringing him as a head of ethics, the way they're talking about what he's done.
Yeah,
and what they want from him.
And the concern for me would be that every time I see one of these stories come out, whether it's been leaked or backbriefed or whatever, is that always the names that appear alongside it are Jim Ratcliffe and Dave Brailsford. Right? It's not like they're being, as far as I know, I might be wrong, but it's not as though it's coming from a really well seasoned director of football, like an Edu or something.
Yeah,
and that gives the impression, perhaps wrongly, that they're just mucking about. Because the list that was in that story you just mentioned, the names in that story: O'Neill, Southgate, Thomas Frank, Roberto De Zerbi. It just feels like you've just looked down the Premier League table and gone, okay, fans seem to be pretty happy with them. So
value picks,
yeah. And also with the O'Neill thing was quickly denied. So it's like they're testing the water and going, no, we didn't say that. It's like they don't know what they're just canvassing opinion in a sort of perhaps.
Gary O'Neill should never take that. He should never go anywhere near that. It's a poor move. It's a really, really poor move for him, given how well he's doing.
Yeah. I think
he'll just get lost. He'll get lost in the mix.
Yeah, well, but also it's just it's just not what someone. I'm quite interested for them to ask him, actually, truth be told, to ask him to see what the reaction would be, because Gary must be like, is this a wind-up? Do you want me to clean the boots as well?
Yeah.
I very much enjoyed somebody pointing out on Twitter that canonically Gary O'Neill exists in the Office US universe, because there's a scene where Idris Elba taken over from Michael Scott after he goes to do his own paper company.
Spoilers.
Spoilers. He Robert California's the best boss, though. Has to be said. He basically the whole office pretends that they all like soccer because Idris Elba likes soccer.
Yeah.
And he and as one of the screensavers, Andy's got his screensaver set as I think it's a Man United versus Middlesbrough match.
Yeah.
And Gary O'Neill is in the US office, which I think is
It's
lovely.
in the wall, isn't it?
He's
in
in-
this
It's
picture.
good. It's good stuff.
He's
All
a
right.
massive football figure, and
Yeah.
I'm pleased you guys are finally
Have
waking
some
up to
respect.
it.
Yeah, exactly.
No news to anyone on the South Coast, mate.
Hey,
He's one of the best gags in the whole show.
100%. 100%.
Hey, Luke, do you know where I'd like to disrespect a wolf? A Forest, Nottingham Forest versus Crystal Palace, Saturday from 3. Forest's first game since the point deduction, the 4-point deduction at that, which has left them in the relegation zone. They've decided to appeal against the deduction this week. I mean, you would, wouldn't you? But I imagine the way Nottingham Forest will do it is they'll get 50 lawyers, which will take them back over the PFF.
Each more aggressive than the last.
Each more expensive than the last. And they won't be talking to each other. It'll be a real mess. But it is getting slightly tight for that team, innit? Santo calling their game, their last game against Luton before the deduction, a bit of a final.
There's a lot of chaos that's followed Nottingham Forest this season. Like a huge amount of chaos, whether it be, I mean, the rap sheet's pretty fucking good. Let's be honest for us. Mark Clattenburg hired him, haven't they?
Yeah.
Because they got a lot of bad refereeing decisions.
Yeah.
No one really knows what Mark Clattenburg's doing.
He can't believe his luck.
He came out and spoke on behalf of Nottingham Forest the other day, and then in the comments was saying that he's actually not spoken to the referee or anything like that because that's not his job. But what is your job then? They would then fine 75 grand Forest after Stephen Reed called Paul Tierney a cunt 3 times.
Like Beetlejuice.
The Candyman appeared.
Paul Turney appears.
James Corden appears.
just generally very, very chaotic off the pitch.
The Stephen Reed thing is amazing. So Paul Tierney's quotes from that. Obviously, the altercation started on the pitch after the game, and Tierney said he asked me about a decision, and I said to him that I will speak to him inside and not outside on the field of play. He then continued to question me, and I repeated that I would speak to him inside. He then said, "It's the same every week, you cunt." I love that he couldn't hold it in. Just take it inside.
Why? Just do it outside. You're standing there, aren't you? What else are you doing?
You're going to cost yourself 75 grand.
That cost him 75,000 grand.
I was trying to. Was it 75?
75 grand, yeah.
Right. Okay. I was trying to work out how that goes
Many
three ways.
First C word.
Yeah, it's just 25 grand
25,
of C word, right?
25 grand.
Yeah.
The 25 grand word.
You should have a multiplier, I think.
Oh, what? You
You
should
keep
get
doing
more
it.
if you keep doing it. Yeah,
Yeah.
I would agree with that, yeah.
It was he was found guilty of it on the balance of probabilities, apparently.
It says
That's what it said. That's what it said in the referee's report.
So good.
That's in the referee's report.
good.
That's the
So
last thing you want against you.
I don't know if they'll appeal that as well, but like you said, they're appealing the points deduction. I mean, the points deduction appeal, I understand why they're doing it. We really are in a situation where I think Marcus was saying a few weeks ago now that if they appeal, I think the actual decision will be made like a few days before the end of the season or something. It's just crazy how this is all coming into play. But they've got to do something, right? They didn't do points deductions for a while and it didn't seem to work. And financial penalty thing is problematic for obvious reasons. So this is how it's got to be before people fall into line.
Yeah.
We could see. I think we could see Leicester coming into the Premier League next season with a deduction as well, which is like a wild situation to be in. So look, that's how it goes.
Yeah, and last time out, this match gave us a thrilling goalless draw, and I think this will probably happen again, to be honest.
I mean,
both teams looking pretty listless.
There's a situation with Forest, isn't there? Not just given the points deduction, but given that they've been on such a poor run of form at a key time, where you feel like possibly not the Brighton game, although they narrowly lost that one, but the Luton game, this Palace game, Forest at home after that. Then I think they play Wolves after they play Spurs.
Yeah.
It's really like take a shit or get off the pot time. Because, I mean, it could all be done by the time Burnley's on the final day and they've still got to play Chelsea and Man City. So, I mean, they've got an Everton game away as well. So, it's really is the time to make a move because that Luton game was kind of a real big missed opportunity. I understand why the Liverpool thing rankles in context. I mean, obviously, but they need to start making a move now. And we don't really know what to make of Palace at the moment because...
They're fresh from their holidays in Marbella.
Who, Palace?
Yeah, they took some warm weather training in Marbella, which is a lovely touch.
Lovely spot.
Place that used to produce 75% of Spain's iron, Jim.
There you go.
Yeah.
Nice to know.
Wow.
That's probably why he went there, is it?
Insight into
Smelting.
research.
Big smelting fan, is Glasner.
Well, well, the Palace aren't going to get relegated, right? And they've got a new manager in situ. So, I mean, this is a really big opportunity for Forest. It is.
Indeed.
Dean Smith also says you're an encyclopedia of football.
A what?
An encyclopedia of football.
I don't know what that means.
Oh, what? It's a simple game. A categories, Jack, for crying out loud. Lukey Moo, you feeling good about this one?
How many weeks champion am I now?
Oh, you are. Vish made his return last week. Jim got another win. He's got another shot at the lineal belt today, but
Against
I don't
me.
know
I think
where.
I'm like 6.
You should know.
I think I'm like 6 weeks in.
Right.
So, I mean, you've got to take some confidence from that.
Just off the top of your head, yeah, about
Yeah,
6
fine.
weeks.
The Lion doesn't concern itself with the opinions of the people. Whether
Big
they're wearing
talk.
fleeces or not. Whether they brought their own fleeces or not.
You're wearing a
I know.
fleece.
I brought my work tools in.
You've got a hammer?
I brought a hammer.
Oh, it's
so
a reign of
watch out,
terror.
yeah?
It's a reign
You
of
can't
terror.
use it like a gavel because you will break the table.
Yeah, it's a massive hammer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All right, then.
So do I get to go first as lineal champion?
Yeah, you do.
Oh,
and
good.
also you're to my left, and I'm a very simple man with simple tastes.
I agree with that.
All right, then. Kicking things off with the first round. Men's players who have played for both Arsenal and Manchester City. There are 60 answers.
Well, we'll just give Jim the fucking point now.
Men's
Okay.
players who have played for both Arsenal and Man City, please, Lukey Mo.
Gabriel Jesus.
Alexandra Zinchenko.
Emmanuel Adebayor.
Good one.
I like it. Ooh.
Patrick Vieira.
It's lovely. Gail Clichy.
Bakary Sanya.
Bastard, I was going to go that. Gosh, getting desperate now.
Is it a little bit?
Ever, is it? In the history of the clubs, okay.
Mm.
Niall Quinn.
I like it.
Very good.
Good stuff.
Samir Nasri.
Samir Nasri.
That's a very good guess.
Yeah.
Kolo Toure.
Correct.
Jesus.
Jesus.
Nine down. That's really
Yeah.
good.
It's Torres to give Chelsea a place in the Champions League final. The headline has been written.
Got nothing.
You know what, Lukey? I should let you do just for the Niall Quinn, but I can't. I'm so sorry. Vish?
Paul Dickoff.
Oh, very good.
I
That's
like
excellent.
that. That's good too.
Silvino.
Correct. We got through.
Ooh.
Some thin tea here. We've got
This is-
5 left.
I'm not sure there should be Arsenal themed ones when Jim's here. I think it's a little bit full on.
Stuart Taylor.
That was very long.
Sorry?
That was very long. He had a long time to think of that, is all I'm saying.
Doesn't matter, Jimmy's there.
Very good guess.
Jim
Fish, that's
Campbell.
excellent.
Nicholas Anelka.
Oh, how did I not get
Ah, that's
You
very
get 2 for that. There we
good.
go. Vish?
Meow.
Meow. Incorrect.
It's Torres to give Chelsea a place in the Champions League final.
David Seaman.
Oh,
Very good.
yes! I
Very
like
good.
it. I like to
already
see
had
it.
David Seaman.
Yeah.
All right.
No, we haven't.
Richard Wright.
Not on the list.
Wait, give me the
Not on
hammer.
list. Give me the hammer. No, it's first round.
He didn't play. He must not play the game.
He's not played a game, but he was there for a little while.
Outrageous.
Didn't
Well,
make
the
it
Vish.
clear that he had to play a game, to be fair.
No.
But
You could have had
Ooh.
Rocky Rawcastle and Eddie McGoldrick and Neil Heaney as well.
Neil Haynes.
Eddie
There we go.
McGoldrick. Jeez,
Yeah.
I'm
He's
annoyed I
on my
didn't get
list.
that. Was he?
Eddie MC is written right
Really?
there.
You
Wow.
went Richard
What is
Wright
that?
instead.
Equals MC squared you've written there. I very much like
It's
that
really
you just do initialisms rather than the full names, so less that
Initialisms.
anyone
Quicker, isn't it?
sees you.
It's
Yeah.
quicker.
Nice. All right.
That's well annoying.
Round 2. Kick things off with you, Vish.
Big chance for you now, Vish.
Big, you
got a
could
point.
get this
Yeah,
one.
yeah,
You could
yeah.
bag this one. Teams that England's men have faced at the European Championships finals. When did we start calling like tournaments finals?
Dunno,
it's
it's
quite
quite
recent,
technical,
isn't
isn't
it?
it?
Yeah. Teams that England's men have faced at the European Championships finals.
Germany.
Yep.
Spain.
Scotland.
Netherlands.
Netherlands.
Wales.
Good. Switzerland.
Denmark.
Italy.
Why'd you bring that up?
Yeah. Soviet Union.
Nice.
Sweden.
France.
Russia.
Ooh, I like it.
Portugal.
Good one.
Ukraine.
Very did.
Very good.
We did.
Republic of Ireland.
We did.
Romania.
Correct.
Jesus, Vish, that's very good.
Yeah.
Belgium.
Ooh, certainly did.
God. I want to say Northern Ireland.
Ah, unlucky, Luke. But it was
Damn.
brave. It was a brave move, I think. Vish, let's have one from you.
Croatia.
Yes, we did.
Oh,
See?
okay. There are even that many countries in Europe left.
5 left.
5 left. Okay.
It's Torres.
Poland.
Oh, Vishy. Let me find my
Takes the
button.
title.
Let me find my button.
He takes the title, Vish. Well played, mate. Very good.
And in keeping with this will be the last Friday show I do for the rest of the season.
You could have had Czech Republic, you could have had Germany, you could have had Iceland, you could have had Slovakia.
We had Germany,
and you could have had, we hardly knew you, Yugoslavia. So there you go.
Czech Republic was what I was making the hands
Yeah.
at.
Yeah.
All
okay.
right then. Well done. I
done,
forgot I was
Vish.
hosting for a second. As soon as I get a hammer in my hand, I just forget.
Yeah.
The
So
red
do I
mist
get-
descends and yeah.
Do I get the hammer?
Yeah, you can have the hammer.
Yes!
You can have the little
Hammer adjusted.
hammer of justice.
Don't need a laptop anymore.
Hammer your own laptop.
You shouldn't have had your laptop out. Thank you very much for listening to the Football Ramble preview show, sponsored by Betfair, part of the Aircast Creator Network. Oh, it's a good network. Join Luke, Vish and Jim tomorrow for the mailbag, where they're answering all of your disgusting questions. You can follow us on X, you can follow us on TikTok, YouTube and Instagram at Football Ramble. Follow us on Spotify. Vish, can you smash open the door to the weekend with the big hammer? Lovely. Put a sound effect in there, Finn, will you? See you later, Luke.
See you later, guys.
Ta-ta, Vish.
Give me your fleece, Luke.
The Fleece of Champions. It's way too big for you.
Farewell, Jim.
See you later.
Vish has turned into some kind of street hooligan.
Thanks for watching a clip from the Football Ramble podcast. Don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a video. And if you're feeling extra generous, why don't you like this video? Why don't you like this video?